A simple woman named Sarah was thrown out like yesterday's trash from the upscale La Belle Étoile restaurant in downtown Chicago, until her billionaire husband, Michael Grayson, rolled up in his Porsche and flipped the whole damn night upside down. It was a crisp April evening, the kind where the city lights bounce off the glass towers and the air smells faintly of wealth and ambition. La Belle Étoile sat perched on the top floor of a sleek skyscraper, all crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths, a place where the elite came to sip overpriced wine and flaunt their status. Sarah, though, didn't look the part. Not tonight. She wore a faded gray sweater, a pair of worn jeans, and scuffed boots that clicked softly against the polished marble as she stepped inside. Her auburn hair was swept into a loose bun, and her face, gorgeous if you bothered to notice, was free of makeup. She carried herself with quiet confidence, but to the staff, she might as well have been invisible. Or worse, a trespasser. Sarah had come alone, hoping to surprise Michael. It was their anniversary, 10 years since they'd met at a dive bar where she'd been waitressing, back when he was just a scrappy entrepreneur with big dreams. Now, he was the Michael Grayson, the man who owned half the city's real estate and could make or break careers with a single phone call. But Sarah? She hadn't changed. She still shopped at thrift stores, cooked dinner most nights, and drove a beat-up Honda, even though their garage held a fleet of luxury cars. Tonight, she'd wanted to meet him here, at this fancy spot he'd mentioned in passing, to remind him of the old days. She'd even brought a small handwritten note tucked in her pocket. A love letter, simple and sweet, just like her. The trouble started the second she crossed the threshold. The hostess, a sharp-faced woman named Claire, with a pinched smile and a designer blazer, barely glanced up from her reservation book. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone dripping with doubt, like Sarah had wandered in off the street by mistake. Sarah smiled warmly. "I'm here to meet my husband. I don't have a reservation, but I was hoping—" Claire cut her off with a scoff. "No reservation? I'm sorry, but we're fully booked. This isn't a walk-in kind of place." Her eyes raked over Sarah's outfit, lingering on the frayed hem of her sweater. "Maybe try somewhere more your speed." Sarah's smile didn't falter. "I understand it's busy," she said calmly. "I'm happy to wait at the bar until he arrives." Claire's lips tightened into a thin line. "The bar's for paying guests only. Look, I don't know how you got up here, but we have standards." Sarah blinked, caught off guard by the venom, but she held her ground. "I'm not here to cause trouble. I just need a spot to wait." Before Claire could snap back, a waiter named Derek swooped in, his slicked back hair and fake charm making him look like a used car salesman. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, loud enough for nearby diners to turn their heads. "This isn't a soup kitchen! You're holding up the line!" A few patrons snickered, their eyes darting between Sarah and the staff like they were watching a live comedy show. Sarah felt the heat creeping up her neck, but she refused to let it show. "I'm not asking for a handout," she said evenly. "I'll pay for a drink while I wait." Derek laughed, a sharp barking sound, and leaned closer, his breath reeking of mint gum. "Lady, you couldn't afford the ice in our drinks. Why don't you save us all the trouble and head out?" Claire nodded smugly, folding her arms. "Exactly. You're making our guests uncomfortable." Sarah glanced around. A couple at a nearby table, a man in a tailored suit and a woman dripping in diamonds, whispered to each other, smirking as they watched. Another diner, a middle-aged guy with a Rolex, muttered, "Some people have no shame," loud enough for her to hear. The humiliation stung, but Sarah straightened her spine. She wasn't weak. She'd faced worse than this in her life. Years of scraping by, judgmental stares, whispered insults. She could handle a few snobs. "You're wrong about me," she said quietly, locking eyes with Claire. "But I won't beg for your respect." That's when the manager, a wiry guy named Victor with a pencil mustache and a superiority complex, strutted over. He'd clearly been eavesdropping, and now he saw his chance to play the hero. "What's the holdup?" he barked, glaring at Sarah like she was a smudge on his pristine reputation. Claire jumped in, her voice syrupy with fake concern. "She's loitering, sir. No reservation, no money, just wasting our time." Victor sized Sarah up, his lip curling. "This is La Belle Étoile, not a bus station. Get her out of here before she scares off the real clientele." Sarah opened her mouth to protest, but Victor snapped his fingers, and a burly security guy named Ray lumbered over. Ray towered over her, his meaty hands flexing like he was itching to use them. "Let's go, miss," he growled, grabbing her arm with just enough force to make it clear he wasn't asking. Sarah didn't flinch. She pulled her arm free and stared him down, her voice steady as steel. "I'll walk out myself. You don't need to touch me." Ray hesitated, thrown off by her calm defiance, but Victor waved him on. "Escort her. Now!" As Ray's grip tightened on Sarah's arm, Claire leaned in close, her voice a venomous hiss meant for Sarah alone. "You think you can waltz in here looking like a charity case and waste our time? I've seen a dozen like you, pathetic, pretending they belong, fishing for handouts. Take your sob story somewhere else." Derek smirked, egging her on, and added, "Yeah, maybe try the dumpster out back. Might find something more your level there." A woman at a nearby table, her lips painted red and her neck glittering with jewels, laughed outright and snapped a photo of Sarah's flushed face, muttering, "This'll be hilarious on my feed." Sarah's jaw clenched, her dignity under siege, but she refused to snap back, her silence only fueling their cruelty as they shoved her toward the door, reveling in her humiliation. The room buzzed as Ray marched Sarah toward the glass doors. Diners craned their necks, some chuckling, others shaking their heads in mock pity. Claire called after her, "Come back when you've got a new wardrobe." Derek added, "And a sugar daddy." Their laughter echoed as Ray shoved Sarah onto the outdoor terrace, the cold night air hitting her like a slap. The doors swung shut behind her, and she stood there, alone, the city skyline glittering below. Her chest tightened with anger, not at them, but at the unfairness of it all. She didn't need their approval. She didn't need to prove anything. But damn, it hurt to be treated like dirt. She fished her phone from her pocket, her fingers trembling slightly as she dialed Michael. He picked up instantly, his deep voice a balm to her frayed nerves. "Sarah? You okay?" She took a breath, keeping her tone light despite the lump in her throat. "Hey, babe. I'm fine. Just got kicked out of La Belle Étoile." There was a pause, then a low, dangerous edge crept into his words. "They did what?" She sighed. "They thought I didn't belong. Can you come get me?" She heard the jingle of keys on the other end. "I'm 5 minutes away. Don't move." Sarah slipped the phone back into her pocket and leaned against the railing, staring out at the city. She wasn't crying. She wouldn't give them that satisfaction. But her mind raced. She could have flashed her platinum card, dropped Michael's name, turned the tables in a heartbeat. But that wasn't her. She hated the idea of using wealth as a weapon. She just wanted to be seen for who she was, a woman with a good heart, not a walking bank account. The sound of screeching tires snapped her out of her thoughts. A black Porsche 911 Turbo roared up to the curb below, its engine purring like a beast, ready to pounce. Michael stepped out, all 6'3" of him, his charcoal suit hugging his broad frame. His dark eyes scanned the terrace until they locked on her, and in that moment, she felt safe again. He took the private elevator up, the one reserved for VIPs, and when the doors dinged open, every head on the terrace turned. Michael strode toward Sarah, ignoring the gasps from the smokers and loiterers who recognized him. He pulled her into his arms, his hands gentle but firm, and murmured, "You sure you're okay?" She nodded, resting her forehead against his chest. "Yeah, just mad." His jaw tightened, and he kissed the top of her head before turning toward the restaurant doors. "Let's fix this." They walked back inside, Michael's arm around her waist, and the atmosphere shifted like a storm rolling in. Claire's eyes widened, her fake smile freezing in place as she registered Michael's face. Derek, mid-flirt with a customer, nearly dropped his tray. Victor, who'd been schmoozing a table of suits, spun around and went pale. Michael didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His presence alone commanded the room. "Evening," he said, his tone deceptively casual. "Mind telling me why my wife was just thrown out of your establishment?" Claire stammered. Your wife? Sir, we didn't—" Michael cut her off, his gaze icy. "You didn't what? Didn't see her standing there, asking politely to wait for me? Or didn't think she was worth your time because she doesn't dress like a runway model?" Derek tried to jump in, all nervous laughter. "It was a mix-up, man. We thought—" Michael's eyes flicked to him, and Derek shut up fast. "You thought she was poor. You mocked her, humiliated her, and had her dragged out. That's not a mix-up. That's a choice." The diners were silent now, forks hovering over plates, watching the drama unfold. Victor hustled over, sweating through his shirt. "Mr. Grayson, sir, I'm so sorry. We had no idea she was with you. Please, let us make it right." Michael tilted his head, studying Victor like he was a bug under a magnifying glass. "You mean you had no idea she was rich? If she'd walked in wearing diamonds, you'd have kissed her feet. But she didn't, so you treated her like garbage." "That's your policy?" Sarah touched his arm, her voice soft but firm. "Michael, it's okay. I don't want a scene." He looked at her, his expression softening for a split second, then hardening again as he faced Victor. "No, it's not okay. They don't get to disrespect you and walk away like nothing happened." Victor wrung his hands. "Please, sir, we'll comp your meal. Reserve the best table." Michael held up a hand. "I don't want your food. I want you to understand something. This woman," he nodded at Sarah, "is worth more than your entire staff combined. And I'm not talking about money." Just as Victor's stammered apology faded into the tense air, Michael leaned forward, his voice dropping to a chilling growl that silenced the room. "She's not just my wife," he said, his eyes blazing as they swept over the gawking diners. "She's the reason I'm standing here. 10 years ago, when I was a nobody with a failing dream, she pawned her mother's ring, the only thing she had left from her family, to keep us afloat. That's who you threw out like trash." Gasps erupted, forks clattering against plates as the crowd processed it. Sarah, in her faded sweater, wasn't just humble. She was a goddamn hero. Michael rose to his full height, towering and unyielding, pointing at Claire, Derek, and Ray. "You didn't just disrespect her, you spat on everything she built, and now you'll pay for it." That's when the twist hit. A man in a crisp suit stood up from a corner table, his face flushed with recognition. "Michael Grayson!" he called out, loud enough to draw every eye. "Holy hell, it is you." Murmurs rippled through the room as people connected the dots. Michael Grayson wasn't just a rich guy. He was the most powerful man in the country, a billionaire with ties to senators, CEOs, and the kind of influence that could tank a business with one word. The man at the table kept talking, oblivious to the growing panic among the staff. "I saw you on CNBC last week. You just bought out half of Michigan Avenue." Claire's knees buckled slightly, and Derek looked like he might bolt for the exit. Victor's mustache twitched as he realized the depth of his screw-up. Michael ignored the guy and focused on the staff. "You didn't just insult my wife," he said, his voice low and lethal. "You insulted me, and I don't take that lightly." Sarah stepped forward, her beauty shining through her plain clothes, her calm demeanor unshaken. "I wanted to surprise my husband tonight," she said, addressing the room. "I didn't expect to be treated like I was less than human. But I'm not here for revenge. I just want you to do better." The silence was deafening. Then Michael dropped the hammer. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to apologize to my wife. Properly. Then you're going to seat us at that table. He pointed to the best spot by the window. And serve us like you mean it. After that, I'll decide if this place deserves to stay open. Because I can promise you, one call from me, and La Belle Étoile is a memory. Victor practically tripped over himself to comply. Mrs. Grayson, I'm deeply sorry. We were wrong, completely out of line. Please, forgive us. Claire and Derek muttered apologies too, their voices shaking. Ray, the security guy, just stared at the floor, mumbling something incoherent. Sarah nodded graciously. Thank you. I accept. Michael guided her to the table, and the staff scrambled to set it up, their hands trembling as they poured water and laid out napkins. The meal was flawless. Lobster bisque, filet mignon, a bottle of wine that cost more than most people's rent. Sarah ate with the same quiet dignity she'd shown all night, chatting with Michael about their old dive bar days, laughing softly at his stories. The other diners kept stealing glances, some whispering apologies of their own when they caught her eye. But the real punishment came after dessert. Michael leaned back in his chair, sipping his coffee, and beckoned Victor over. You've got a good chef, he said. But your staff? They're a liability. I'm giving you one chance to fix this. Fire the ones who crossed the line tonight. Claire, Derek, Ray, or I'll make sure every investor I know pulls out of this place. You'll be lucky to sell burgers by next month. Victor's face drained of color. Sir, Michael raised an eyebrow. Choose. Victor didn't hesitate long. By the next morning, Claire, Derek, and Ray were gone, their names blacklisted in every high-end joint in Chicago. Word spread fast. Michael Grayson's wife had been disrespected, and he'd brought the hammer down. The restaurant scrambled to save face, posting a public apology online, but the damage was done. Regulars started canceling reservations, spooked by the fallout. Victor kept his job, but he spent every shift looking over his shoulder, knowing one more slip-up could end him. Sarah and Michael drove home that night, the Porsche humming through the quiet streets. She rested her head on his shoulder, the handwritten note still in her pocket. You didn't have to go that far, she said softly. He glanced at her, his eyes fierce with love. Yeah, I did. Nobody treats you like that. Not ever. She smiled, squeezing his hand. I just hope they learned something. He smirked. They'll learn, or they'll burn. The next day, Sarah dropped by a local shelter to donate some clothes. Same as always. She didn't need the spotlight. She never had. But as she walked away, a few volunteers whispered about the mystery woman who'd taken down La Belle Étoile. She didn't hear them. She was already planning dinner. Spaghetti. Nothing fancy. Because that's who she was. Gorgeous, humble, strong, and untouchable. Thanks to the man who'd move mountains for her. Hey, if you loved this story, hit that like button, drop a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more tales that'll keep you hooked. See you next time.